Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. This is one of my experiments. Um, no script, no notes, just about 2 or 3 minutes of thinking about this before I turned on the video. Um, the thought experiment is this. I'm a career counselor, been a career counselor with a zillion clients, but I wanted to see what I would actually do if I myself had to look for work. And here are my thoughts. I would probably uh, focus on what my best one or two skills are. And mine are communicating verbally or in writing, uh, thinking on my feet, doing it quickly. I'm less interested in being a scholar who's going to write some long thing these days. Uh, it's not fun for me. I like to use my really narrow best skill is being able to write and speak on my quickly, speak on the fly, write very quickly. So I would write my resume to accentuate that. I don't need my resume to reflect everything I've done, just just the things I really care my target employer to see, because everything else then muddies the picture of who I am. Uh, I could always expand as needed in an interview or whatever, but I would do that. That would be my number one thing. I would be thinking about what in my background would impress my target employer. And I would say that without the BS that's usually there, no adjectives, about how great I am, but rather just simply describe what I've done, who I've written for, spoken for, uh, uh, and of course I would definitely include samples of my work. And that would be true. People think that you can only do that if you're an artist or a writer or whatever. But there's usually samples of whatever you do, even if you're a project manager, the kind of outline of the project you've done, or a written summary of sample projects, or something you can insert either directly in the resume or as a separate, an attachment, some additional item. What else would I do? I would then, yes, I would post my resume on LinkedIn and any other websites that might be specific to people who do a lot of writing. And I would ask myself, what kind of writing careers, jobs would I want? I'd probably be okay in if it was a company I believed in, or a government agency I believed in, or a nonprofit, in their marketing department, public affairs, uh, media relations, government relations, media relations. So I'd think about that. And I'd probably, for my plan A, I'd probably aim high. I'd go for the companies I really believed in and thought were great. Um, you know, and it, but I wouldn't immediately viscerally go to the companies that are popular because they get 10 zillion applications. Although I wouldn't ignore them, I have nothing to lose by giving them a shot. So I'd make a list of those companies, and nonprofits and government agencies. They all have their advantages. And I would show that list to, I'd email that list probably to 10 or 20 people who like me of any sort. They don't have to work there, although that would be a plus, but, people know people. And I would say, I'd write them a very brief note. I would say something like, looking for my next project. I don't need to sound desperate and therefore be embarrassed to tell my friends. I would simply say I'm looking for my next interesting project. I like to write and speak pretty much off the cuff. I can write quite quickly. Um, and these are, 10 companies, 10 organizations I'd like to work for. I might be willing to work for. If you know somebody there who you think you might either make a call on my behalf or set up a three-way meeting of introduction, which is the best, or simply allow me to use your name an in, that's great. Probably to also go to LinkedIn, my LinkedIn connection, see if I had anybody at those 10 organizations. That way I'd be trying to get in through the back door, not just answering ads, because once you just answer ads, there's, too many applicants, and sometimes they advertise when they already have the job wired for somebody. So yeah, I'd answer ads. I'd certainly go to the companies and organizations' websites and answer ads that were appropriate. And the way I'd answer ad would be, once an ad is advertised, they really want to, they're going to eliminate everybody who isn't a perfect fit. So I'd look at the ad, and if it really is appropriate, I would point by point explain how I meet all the requirements, and then refer them to my job samples, etc. through the back door. Um, I do believe in practicing radical honesty, and while I tell my clients to do it, I know I would do that myself. So I would talk about my strengths and my weaknesses, at least a couple weaknesses. I wouldn't sound like a basket case, but I would um, acknowledge that I'm a terrible team player. You don't want me on a team. I get impatient. I'm dominating, um, judgmental. So what you want me for is if you need somebody, I'll just be briefly immodest here, I'm trying to avoid that. If you want somebody smart and fast and completely ethical, um, who will get the job done, I am very dogged and very fast. Uh, I'm your guy. Uh, but if you want somebody on a team, forget it. So I'd make clear my weaknesses. Uh, then in the interview, I would in the interviews I realized normally it's without being a bombast and being too, there's a fancy word called meretricious, which is just cheaply showy. I would try to hit a home run. I would use my personality, which can be quite assertive, without being obnoxious. Just on the other side, politely, quite assertive. In trying to be a star, I might, for example, uh, ask them if they'd let me demonstrate an example of how I could think on my feet. So, if they were to say, okay, if it was something that in PR, I'd say, okay, pretend you're a reporter and you were asking me a question about a hard issue. Ask me. So it'd give me a chance to show my wares. That's very, it's ballsy. And I may not even be allowed to do that in certain job interviews because of affirmative action requirements. They require everybody to get exactly the same question asked in exactly the same tone. But if there was flexibility, I would try to uh, to really distinguish myself. Um, I certainly wouldn't write just stupid plain thank you note. That just makes you seem too obsequious. I would write a what I call an influencing letter, which would be something like, and I'll try to demonstrate here my thinking on my feet. Uh, Dear whatever the person's name is, um, I enjoyed interviewing with you for the specific. I enjoyed interviewing with you. I was particularly impressed with A, B, and C. Like for example, that you seem to ask really good probing questions beyond what I did, but the nature in which the context I did it and probed to see really how much depth I had, and I appreciated those questions. Uh, I also felt good about the fact that your company is doing X, and because I know a fair amount about X, I think I could go beyond the typical veneer of a PR person. Uh, I did have a chance to additionally reflect on the question you asked about whatever, and then if it was a question I kind of flubbed or had some good new ideas, I'd probably add it, and so that kind of gives me a second bite at the apple. And then I'd say, so in any event, I'm more interested than ever in the position, if that were true, and I'm hoping to hear from you. So I do that. Um, if I wanted to go the extra mile, I might ask one of my references to actually make a call or write an email on my behalf, saying something like, I hear Marty Nemko is applying for this job. I thought I'd throw my 2 cents in. I know him in this context. He'd be particularly good at this job because of whatever, and he'd mention something that I told him was clearly important in this particular job. Um, and I would do all of this in a week or two because I want to maximize my chances of getting multiple job offers at the same time so that I can pick the better one and also can negotiate. If they're both good, I can use one as a wedge for negotiation with them. Speaking of negotiation, I tend to be a medium negotiator. If I negotiate too hard, even if I win, it creates unnecessarily high expectations. I become I'm kind of sticking out and likely to get laid off. But I also don't want to just necessarily accept the first offer. So unless the first offer is great, I will probably counter. Uh, I will, usually both on the compensation side and maybe one or two items that are important to me on the benefit side. For example, if I wanted to, the travel, the commute is getting ever worse, so I would try to negotiate the right to telecommute for a day or two a week. What might also be important to me is the job responsibilities and for example being able to sit in on senior level meetings would be very important to me. So that's kind of what I would do. Uh, I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you. That's what I think I would do in a nutshell. And I hope that's helpful to you in finding a good job, not just any job, because good jobs are unfortunately ever harder to find, and it requires you to do those little extras. Anyway, I'm Marty Nemko.